This evening, I'm very privileged to have Sally Krumdiack here, and Sally is a very interesting person, which is why I invited her to come down. And so I want to start off with a few questions. What got you interested in low carb?
What got me interested in low carb, I think, was being in a sport that required me to keep my weight low. And with all the diets I had tried, because I used to be overweight as a kid and as a teenager, when I tried low carb, it was one of the easiest diets.
And so you were overweight. Nobody would tell by looking at you now that you were overweight.
And I think because I've been now in my adult years have been leaner longer than I've been overweight, most people don't know that I have been, and you still work at it even when you're old, when you've done it for so long. So when I was 15 years old, I would say it was my heaviest, and I didn't get on scales much, but I remember it being 182. And right now, my weight has fluctuated through the years, but right now where I'm comfortable is around 120, 125. So
you lost about 60 pounds.
Correct.
Oh. Now, your initial passion that caused this, you were actually into martial arts.
Correct.
What type of martial arts?
Mixed martial arts, which is basically no rules fighting. MMA, which is grappling, kickboxing, wrestling, all put together. You see the UFC on TV that's making a big hit. It was that. I did a couple kickboxing fights because I thought I wanted to be a kickboxer, and added the grappling submission wrestling to it, and then got into MMA.
And you not only got into MMA, but you got into it at a very high competitive level?
Correct. Because when I got into it, the women's circuit wasn't very big, so there's not a lot of women out there. There was not really an amateur circuit for the women. So I had done amateur kickboxing fights, but I got to go pro as they say, for my first MMA fight, which I lucked out. Not lucked out, but I had made it there. And I did well right away, so that'll keep anybody going. These days now, the women's circuit has gotten way bigger, so people can get their experience in the cage or the ring with some amateur fights and then go pro.
So what was it about the mixed martial arts that attracted you?
I liked the kickboxing. I thought that was fun. But I was good at it all, and I guess if I was good at badminton maybe and could go pro, I'd probably do that. I always saw it as a sport. I never had a chip on my shoulder or wanted to beat anybody up or saw anything other than that. I never got in fights, or that's just not my personality, but it was a sport. It was technical. If you worked hard, you could get good. I think just like any sport.
Did you ever get hurt?
I've gotten hurt many times. I think at the beginning, not a lot. The girls weren't. When you first start, you just go through a lot of opponents that aren't good, and then I was good, so I didn't get hurt a lot. But even in my career, the last 3 years, I have gotten hurt, and injuries heal pretty quickly.
You're still pretty young.
True. And it's not a sport that you can go for very long anyway. I mean, our bodies break down.
And when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you did a lot of traveling with this.
Yes, that's really why I went for it. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. We didn't get to travel. My first ride on an airplane was actually to my first pro MMA fight. I had never been on the plane before, and I got to go to Hawaii, which, I mean, who doesn't want to go to Hawaii? The 23-year-old who's never gotten to travel, never been on a plane. That was incentive enough for me to go. Might as well.
Now, you said you went pro. Did you make a good living at it?
No. Women just don't get paid in this sport, and I see both sides of it, but you have to have a second job.
So what did you do for a living then?
I was a personal trainer. I went to school to be, I got my degree in exercise and sports science. So I was doing personal training, and that's always hit and miss, whether you have clients or whether you like the gym you're working at. I didn't want to work in a big gym and sell them stuff they didn't want. So I had some clients on the side, and I just made do with that. I had many hard days. I slept in the gym a couple months because you could only get clients at certain times, and I would take whatever I could get. And I still wanted time to train.
And you're originally from Washington?
Correct. I'm from Bellingham, Washington, which is just south of Canada, about 20 minutes south of the Canadian border.
Now, you got interested in low carb because that was the easy way to keep your weight down.
Right.
Did you use that knowledge with your clients?
Yes. At first, I didn't, because I was still stuck in the low fat as well when I first started. That was one of my downfalls, was very high protein, low fat, and low carb, and then you're just eating protein. And it worked, but you're hungry a lot. A lot. I could keep my weight down. But in between fights, after you would weigh in and make weight, you would go eat sugar, binge on whatever you wanted. It's my free license to eat whatever. And that got a roller coaster of weight. And I'd like to say it was a perfect road the whole time, but it wasn't.
Well, I take it that things are a little easier for you now.
Quite easier. I had discovered I had food allergies. I had been diagnosed right before fighting, actually, that I had Crohn's disease. But I didn't have medical insurance, so I was gonna manage it through food because the meds were too expensive. So really, when I felt horrible was when I was having breads and cookies and sugars. They really...
The Crohn's disease is usually associated with gluten, right?
Correct. So then, in later years, I discovered I was gluten intolerant and then celiac. So...
Oh, so you're actually full-blown celiac?
Yes. And that's all or nothing. I didn't know. I would still get sick here and there, but I didn't know it was an all or nothing thing. That even a minuscule amount of gluten could give you a bad day. And I don't have the same symptoms that a doctor would say. You have full-blown celiac disease, which is full atrophy of your villi and your intestines, and I didn't have those symptoms, so it was really hard to get that diagnosis. So, but I knew for myself that it wasn't working. So I changed that, and I still didn't have great days, and my brother was allergic to dairy, and I cut it out of my diet because I knew it actually helped me keep my weight low for a fight. When you cut out the food and introduce it back in, you realize that you have a problem, and it doesn't agree with you. So then there's gluten, there's dairy, there's and now a myriad of other things. But
have you pretty much licked the Crohn's disease now?
Yes, absolutely. You do have days that aren't well, but I would say they're more food intolerance. I wouldn't put them in the Crohn's. I really think Crohn's is probably a blanket for IBS. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably a food allergy, or it's got to be something else, because there's not really a cure. There's not really a good definition for Crohn's.
Of course, if you ask Bill Davis, he'll tell you it's wheat.
It's wheat. It was huge. It was huge. Getting that out did most of the healing, but there was definitely other things underlying.
You probably had to spend some time healing already things
Right.
that were already damaged.
Correct. And there was deep damage done, and it'll never be reversed, and I have to live with that. But I finally feel better, and that's my motivation to stay on it.
Mm-hmm.
Is to feel good.
So, what got you interested in coming on the low-carb cruises?
Let's see. I watched Fathead because I was always interested in nutrition. And when I saw some of the interviews that Tom Naughton did with some of the experts, I seeked them out. So I read Why We're Fat and What to Do About It by Gary Taubes, and that changed everything about what I thought about calories. Because I still knew somewhere in my teaching or in my schooling, when I went for exercise science, you take a nutrition class and it's calories in, calories out. And I'm teaching my students as a fitness instructor that you need to...
Fat is bad.
Not necessarily fat is bad, but that calories do matter. And you're just going to have to move more and eat less. And when people said, I just don't eat enough, that's my problem, I said, you're crazy. You don't eat enough, you can't be that size and eat that little that you're telling me. I don't believe you. And I feel horrible now because I was just...
you know better.
I know better now, and I was wrong. And so that book led me to more discoveries, to seeking out more information, and I started listening to Jimmy Moore's podcast, and they announced that they were going to do the low-carb cruise. And
so how many of these cruises have you been on?
This is my second one.
Oh, okay.
So last year was my first, and it was a great experience, and I had to come back.
Yeah, because if you remember, I actually sat next to you several times.
Oh, yes.
During
Yes.
that. And,
The whole time you two were sitting right next to me, I had to sit in the front row because I wanted to get in everything.
I also noticed that you had trouble sitting still.
Really?
Yeah, you were always fidgeting or ready to go, like you had too much energy.
Maybe it's the diet.
Yeah, it could be. I noticed that in our dinners, you get just a plain salad, and then you add you bring some.
I bring food because of all my food allergies, and especially the celiac. I cannot trust people with preparing my food. I don't know what's been on the grill. I think people know about gluten, but they don't understand how important it is for somebody with celiac to not even be exposed to it. A 90th of a thumbnail of gluten can cause a immune reaction with somebody with celiac disease.
Yeah, I'm actually gluten sensitive myself, but I don't have full-blown celiac, which I guess is a fortunate thing, because the way I find that I've eaten some gluten inadvertently is my hands hurt, and that's about it. Back in the mid-90s, I developed this mysterious arthritis, and it was so bad that I couldn't play my violin in public anymore because I couldn't practice. And the last doctor I saw about that said that I needed to see a shrink because he couldn't find anything wrong with me.
It's
got no help at all from the medical standpoint.
There's so many things that can come from gluten sensitivity. Affects your brain, your joints, your stomach, your...
Now, when you actually, I saw you had a can of some kind of sort of fish.
Of tuna. So for the whole trip, I brought all my own food, which is a lot of work to feed yourself for a week when you've got no other option.
I will say that this is probably the last of the low carb cruises on Carnival. And if they go with Royal Caribbean, which I'm familiar with, you can actually notify them in advance that you're
Right.
celiac, and they will provide you with a complete gluten-free menu.
Right. I was there in December. I went on a cruise with a friend with Royal Caribbean. They really try to cater, and they do understand cross-contamination and being in a separate spot.
Oh, they have a separate gluten-free kitchen.
And everything. I totally understand that, but because I have food allergies to other things, I did get sick. Because I did trust them on a couple things, and I did end up...
So what other things besides gluten?
I can't have eggs. I can't have soy. I can't have coconut. I can't have nuts. I can't have peanuts. I can't have seeds.
My goodness, that's quite a restricted
No dairy,
diet.
no gluten. Right. And
So what do you eat?
I eat beef, chicken, now all these from good sources because I don't feel well when I don't get them from good sources. Grass-fed beef. I am fortunate enough to live in the Pacific Northwest where it's really easy to get good food. I live actually right upstairs from our local food co-op. I can order anything I want.
Mm-hmm. Now, you had mentioned also that although the mixed martial arts was your first real passion, that you kind of lost interest in it. What
I
happened?
did. I had started teaching a fitness boot camp, and it started with a small class with maybe 6 students, and I'd been doing that for a couple months, and the students count went down, and it just wasn't worth my time. So, but I had a couple students who really enjoyed it, so they got together, got their friends, told them, Sally will do this if you can get this many people. And I said, 15 students. Well, we got 12, and there was no way I was going to say no. So I started doing boot camp again, and it was a different time of day, and I think that worked better. And this was in, 2010. And today I have 3 camps, up to 60 students. I teach 14 classes a week. They go 3 days a week. And because I'm working 6 days a week, and I also helped with a nutrition group where I teach them about nutrition, and they're going to come be accountable, write down their carbs. I don't have time for fighting. I had a fight recently, and to juggle the fighting, the boot camp, the nutrition part, I just couldn't do it all. And I think I took the fighting as far as I could, and I enjoyed it, but my last couple fights were just not as fun as they used to be.
Okay, and with your schedule now, it sounds like you're making a better living.
Definitely. I'm paying my bills. I'm not driving around a Hummer or a Mercedes or anything, but yes, I'm definitely doing well.
And you're definitely convinced that the food plan that you're on now is the right one for you.
I think it's the right one for me now. I think things will change as they do when we get older, and not just that. I hope to heal my gut, so maybe I can have some of these other proteins, because I think that because it takes so long for somebody with celiac to heal the gut, with the leaky gut, that I am intolerant to some of these proteins, and if I can heal the gut, I might be able to have some of them. But I mean, I could live like this if I had to, but it would be really nice to be able to have some eggs again, especially on the low carb.
Yeah, if you have a leaky gut, eggs would definitely be a problem.
Right. And most of the food reactions that aren't the dairy and the gluten give me edema really bad. Mm-hmm. I will put on 6, 8, 10 pounds of water weight in a day. It's really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that I promised you that I wouldn't impose on you more than about 20 minutes or so, and we've been about 20 minutes, and I've had a good time, and I'm definitely honored to have you on this video cast. I'm relatively new at this, in case you haven't figured that out.
This is great. Those are great
So,
questions.
anyway, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.